Board of Supervisors meeting to order today. You can all rise for a moment of silence. We'll now go to the pledge. Mr. Barton.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Before we go to public comments, we have a employee introduction. Do we have today? Ms. London?
Good afternoon. I'd like to introduce to you our newly hired Finance and Human Resources Specialist, Sandy Jennings Neblett. Ms. Neblett received her bachelor's from Sweetbriar College, her master's degree from the University of Virginia, and we are confident that she will be an asset to our Finance and Human Resources team. Please join me in welcoming her to Nelson County.
Thank you for coming. All right, moving on to public comments. We have several individuals who have signed up for public comments today. If your name is not on here, you'll have an opportunity to speak at the back end of those who signed up. First on the list is Mr. Bill Piercy.
William Piercy, Livingston. I'd like to submit a public request for the Board of Supervisors to consider a motion to apply for VDOT Smart Scale Evaluation for an unrestricted overpass at Highway 29 and Cahill Road. And two, I'd like to submit a public request for the Board of Supervisors to make a motion to approve the camera speed control program and enter into contract with Blue Line Solution as soon as possible. Number three, I'd like to thank VDOT for the program that they put on over at the Rockfish Community Center a couple of weeks back about the 151 corridor and the possible solutions there. Thanks to Robert Brown and Doug Blood on that. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you, Bill. We got state rules. 3 minutes per individual. State your name and address for the record. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you have given 5 minutes to speak. Moving on to Edith, Ms. Napier.
Good afternoon. I'm Edith Napier, 43, Napier Loop, Harrington, Virginia. I'm speaking today. I would have rather to have spoken after the presentation you're going to get today, but since that's not allowed, I will speak before you. And that is on the Wild Rose Solar Project. Based on the limited information I have seen today, it leaves more questions than answers. I believe I attended a presentation at the Nelson Heritage Center, and I applaud them for coming to the public and giving a presentation, but the people that's really being affected are in the Gladstone area. So as I was there gathering information, I kept wondering, why isn't this presentation being given in Gladstone when they have a community center there that is the largest in the county as far as people in attendance? Also, I asked the county to look at this request with the eye toward knowledge, not just look at what they're going to provide you, but look at the full implications of it. Because it's going to be a humongous project. If you're talking about 500-acre farm, that's a huge project. Ask you to look and ask questions about the income to and jobs for citizens of Nelson. Not just jobs, but jobs for citizens of Nelson. And ensure that there will be some. Economic benefit, again, I ask you to look at that closely because a lot of money is being spent, but make sure the county is going to get its share of the money. And, low-cost electricity, that's one of the things that they list as the objective of it. But is that low-cost electricity going to can impact Nelson citizens at all? Doesn't appear like. I just ask, I'm not for it or against it. I'm saying, please, please, make sure this is not another Piney River project where someone comes in, says things that seem like it's going to be good, and then down the road, we find out that it was not good for Nelson County. Thank you.
Janet Rollins?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to address you all. Again, I'm concerned that there's no opportunity to discuss this solar project, so I'd like to.
You can just state your name and address for the record.
Janet Rawlings, 615 Elk Mountain Road, Afton. I'm on the far northwest area of the county. My neighbors across the street are in Augusta County, and they have been attending numerous meetings over there concerning solar projects. And I have sat in on a couple of them as well, and it's quite alarming. They have 19 projects in the works, and I just wish to express my apprehension regarding the increasing number of solar projects that are currently seeking approval in Augusta County, and soon to be seeking approval in Nelson County, and the potential adverse effects that it's going to have on our community. These projects over there are trying to get in under the wire because the county is in the process of reviewing their comprehensive master plan, but that's going to be about, I believe they said about an 18-month cycle. So all those projects are just scrambling to get before the boards and get grandfathered in. And again, 19 projects is not an insignificant amount. Their board meetings are absolutely packed with paid advisors, paid consultants who have made promises to farmers for very lucrative lease packages in order to plant solar farms on their farms. And it's unfortunate because these assurances that they've given the farmers turn the meetings into very, very contentious situations. And I really don't think Nelson County wants to be faced with that because it's very adversarial, neighbor against neighbor, and it's quite frankly a mess. They're using the argument over there that if you approve one project, which they already did initially before anybody even knew it happened, so they're using that argument that the precedent is set and then therefore they must approve all projects going forward, even in urban service areas, which is strongly, not prohibited, but strongly discouraged under the current master plan. The growing volume of these proposed projects raises concerns about the cumulative impact on our environment, infrastructure, overall quality of life. The companies that are coming in here do not live in our county. We are the ones that are going to bear the brunt of it, and Rockfish Valley is something very special, as you all know. It looks like, we're facing a major catastrophe right now with fire, but this is something I would say on the order of a solar panel invasion is going to have that amount of impact onto the environment. Anyway, just a heads up, you all, it's coming, and yeah, we should take our lessons from other counties and what they're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak that did not sign up? Hearing none and seeing none. We're going to close the public comment section part of this agenda. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? So moved. We have a motion from Ms. Parr. Is there a second? Second. Second from Mr. Reed. Is there any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do a vote by acclamation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any objections, abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. I actually abstained because I was not at the last meeting's minutes. FYI. Moving on to item number 4, November 26th, Artist Sunday. Mr. Reed, do you mind reading this for us?
We have to.
Get a motion to approve.
Right. Make a motion before I do it.
Whatever you want to do.
This is Proclamation P 2023-4, Nelson County Board of Supervisors Artist Sunday, November 26, 2023. Whereas the Nelson County Board of Supervisors celebrates our local artists and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas the arts enrich our lives and enhance the cultural fabric of our community. And whereas Artist Sunday is a national event that celebrates and supports artists of all kinds and encourages the purchase of original artwork from artists. And whereas our community recognizes the important contributions of artists to our economy, our education system, and our quality of life. And whereas our city is home to many talented artists whose work deserves recognition and support, now therefore be it resolved that the Nelson County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim the Sunday following Thanksgiving, November 26th, 2023, is Artist Sunday. We urge all residents to celebrate this day by exploring the works of local artists and considering the purchase of original artwork. Supporting our artists not only benefits them, but also contributes to the growth and vitality of our community. Let us come together to celebrate the creativity and diversity of our local artists and to show our appreciation for their valuable contributions to our city. And I move that we adopt this proclamation.
Second, I'd replace city with county.
There you go.
That's the only edit I would have.
Thank you.
We have a motion and we have a second and a slight edit of city to county. Motion from Mr. Reed, second from Mr. Farr. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a vote by acclamation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the emergency ordinance we have today. For those who obviously have driven through Nelson County today, it's pretty smoky outside, so we believe it is a pertinent thing to put in place a burn ban. This will be effective today. Katie's got some more info for us. We're going to do two things. We're going to do the emergency ordinance. Is there a second to adopt the?
Yes, there's
Yes.
a new proposed resolution that would be the declaration of local drought emergency.
All right.
It's resolution 2023-74.
All right.
Okay.
So we have two
We
resolutions.
have two resolutions on it.
You have a resolution and an emergency ordinance.
Got it. All right, we'll do the ordinance and then the resolution.
Probably the resolution first.
All right.
Yes, sir. Okay. So as Chair Rutherford said, we would like to consider adoption of resolution 2023-74. That would be a declaration of local drought emergency. Here are some statistics from the National Drought Monitor. In terms of drought categories, we're now 14.27% of the county is in extreme drought. That's the Augusta County border area of the county. 49.65% is in severe drought, which is west of Route 29. 36.808% is in moderate drought, and that's east of Route 29. Our agricultural estimates in drought, we have about 12,257 acres of hay, 1,227 acres of haylage, 508 acres of corn, 6,047 head of cattle, 993 head of sheep. Some further statistics are we're about 25 to 50% of normal precipitation levels in the past 30 days. Rockfish Tide, Honey Rivers are considered much below normal status. We're 2.45 inches from normal in the month of October, and then 2.92 inches from normal for the period of January through October 2023. Our precipitation outlook for the next 30 days is 33% to 40% chance of above normal. We have also received a USDA disaster designation from the United States Department of Agriculture. Primary and contiguous counties are designated as drought designation areas by the USDA. Nelson is contiguous to the designated primary county of Augusta, and this provides agricultural producers access to USDA disaster assistance programs, including emergency loans. So our declaration of local drought emergency, resolution 2023-74, is authorized by County Code Chapter 2, Article 3, Section 2-74 and 75, State Code 44-146.21 and 15.2-922.1. And this establishes the authority to regulate or prohibit open air outdoor burning on private property in addition to public property. And this drought emergency would be effective until such time that the county receives significant rainfall that decreases the fire risk, and that the board in its judgment has deemed that all necessary emergency actions have been taken. In addition to the local drought declaration, we would like the board to consider enacting emergency ordinance 2023-01, which would be a local burn ban. Our state code authority sections are 15.2-1427F, 15.2, 922.1, and 18.2-11. So this ordinance would prohibit the making of fires in streets, alleys, and other public places, and also on private property. Violations would be punishable as a Class 2 misdemeanor, which could mean up to 6 months in jail and/or up to a $1,000 fine. This emergency ordinance would expire in 60 days unless readopted in conformity with provisions of 15.2-1427F of the Code of Virginia.
All right. So first piece of this we need to do is resolution 2023-74. Can we get a motion? To approve. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Parr. Any further discussions or questions? Hearing none, let's do a vote by roll call.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. All right, now we're going to do emergency ordinance 2023-01 burn ban. Can we get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Move second from Mr. Reed, second from Mr. Parr. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. All right, this is effective today, right?
Yes.
Immediately.
Immediately, yes.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Put it on your social medias, folks. All right, moving on to presentations. VDOT is unable to be here, correct? Got that emails.
No.
We'll just let staff know what we do for VDOT. Moving on to another presentation of proposed solar. I think it's something to emphasize for those who are in the room and concerned. We are not voting on this today. This is simply just a presentation. If there are further questions to be asked, I'm sure the stakeholders of you will be able to have them. And you can inquire with the board and send it over that way, but this is just an initial presentation.
Yes, I just wanted to give a brief introduction. Our office has been in communication with Savion for over a year to prepare for this application they're preparing. This would be the first utility scale proposal we've received in Nelson. The board adopted our solar ordinance in 2021 after a thorough development process with the Planning Commission. This would be a special use permit process, so we'll go through Planning Commission and to the board with all those requirements of notification, and we're also in discussions to hold another community meeting in partnership with the county for the community before we get there. So I'll introduce Janine Johnson and Lauren Devine with Savion.
All right.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate the introduction. Again, my name is Janine Johnson from Savion. I'm the development manager on the Wildgrove Solar Project. I've got Lauren Devine here as well, who is our senior permitting and environmental lead for the project. So again, quickly just wanted to thank the comments that we received here today. As Mr. Rutherford mentioned, this is just a presentation. We have not filed the special use permit. Our goal here today is to inform about solar development, provide a brief overview of our project, and of course, we want to hear public comment and concerns so that we can address them heading into our special use application. So just a quick agenda. I won't take too much of your time today, but we're going to run through overview of Savion, generally how does solar work, why solar power, why are we developing solar projects, an overview of our Wildgrove solar projects, and then if there's time and if it allows, questions. So just briefly, Savion was founded in 2019. We're a utility scale solar developer. So what does that mean? It means that we generate solar power, feed it onto the grid to supply the utility with energy. We are based in Kansas City, Missouri. We've got 190 plus employees right now. We have a really solid team of experts across the board, engineering, procurement, permitting, and development. And we have a really good renewable energy project development team. So just briefly, a couple numbers to throw at you. We have 33 projects across 13 states that are currently under operation or under construction, and about 90 projects across solar development and battery storage development across 27 states. So we're very well established, and we have a lot of lessons learned from other projects, but looking forward to working with the county and members of the public to hopefully work through this project in Nelson County. Again, I won't take too much time, but just backing up a little bit, what is solar energy? How does it work? We have solar panels, whether you're talking about rooftop or utility scale or a smaller commercial project. The panels absorb the electricity, absorb the sunlight. That electricity from the photovoltaic panels gets sent to inverters, which convert energy from DC to AC. Our transmission lines that you see, running along power lines, cutting through large swaths, run across AC alternating current energy. From there, they get distributed onto the smaller power lines that you see connecting to your house and distributed across the community. So just a lot of people haven't typically seen a project under construction or in operation, so just wanted to provide a few pictures of what they look like. This quick picture on the left is once the site is starting construction, the first step is installing these piles. So those are some pile drivers, which will hold the racking system, which is shown to the right. This is another picture of racking with some of those solar panels being constructed or being installed. We've got two types of racking. There's fixed tilt, so that means the racking sits at a fixed angle and just sits and absorbs the sun, the energy from the sun. Then there's single axis tracking, which means the racking actually shifts as the sun comes across. The panels will track it, so that allows for more efficient energy production throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, they'll shift back and do the same thing the next day. So just a quick picture of an operational project to give you understanding. Panels are anywhere from 10 to 12 feet high, depending on how they're structured. There's several different layouts that you can consider, and these are just a quick example. Another picture of a project that we have in Georgia, a completed project, and these are single axis trackers, so these will be tracking throughout the day. So why are we developing solar? One, it's cost effective compared to other energy producers. Once a solar project is built, there's very little maintenance. There's vegetative maintenance, and we're making sure that panels are still operating and efficient, but there's little maintenance that goes into running a solar power project over the life of the project, which is generally 35 to 40 years. They're reliable as long as it's daylight and there's some sunshine. We can absorb energy and produce electricity. It's a way to put sustainable energy on the grid, clean energy, and also creates grid diversification. I'm a strong proponent of too much of anything is not good, so having a diverse electric grid is kind of how we're trending these days. And then, of course, one of the most important ones is an impact to the economics, especially locally. During construction, there's an uptick in hotels, gas, and then in addition to that, the local tax base, we're increasing the tax that the community receives from a project of this size, and we're having a very limited effect on public schools. We're not increasing any dollars to schools or infrastructure. So I want to quickly run through the general development process. They are, especially projects of this size, can be, take a long time. So generally, we're looking at 4 to 7 years from inception to when a project starts construction. So an early stage project, we kind of bucket them into 3 stages: early, mid, and late stage. So early is when we're signing agreements with landowners. Typically, we have lease agreements with landowners, so any interested landowner we sign a lease option with so that they can still continue to own the property over the life of the project. Once the project is complete, we will decommission the project, restore the land as best we can so that they can continue to use their land as they were prior to the project. And it's a great source of passive income for any landowner who agrees. A lot of times we're working with several landowners on projects, so these can be beneficial. So when you see finalized site control in the mid stage, we have 100% of our site control. So just for some context, when we dive into the Wild Rose Solar project specifically, we're somewhere between early and mid stage for this project. But jumping back up to early stage, we do some field environmental studies and environmental fatal analysis. So what that means is we're taking a look at the project from a desktop perspective and looking at wetlands, threatened and endangered species. We're just taking a high level look to see if and what impacts we might make and how we can avoid those. We don't want to be, building in a floodplain or in a wetland. We're trying to make as little impact as possible. So we're taking a look at that early on in the project. And then the last thing on that early stage is filing an interconnection application. So once we have a project, you need site control and you need an interconnection application and working with the utility. In this case, we're working with AEP, American Electric Power. So we'll file an interconnection application and the utility will study our project and tell us how much it will cost us to put our project on the grid. And likewise, they're studying how much upgrades they need to do to their infrastructure to take our project on. So mid-stage projects, like I said, we're finalizing our site control. We have all the interested landowners under site control and permitting. So in this case, we're looking at a special use permit locally with Nelson County. We are also going through the permit by rule process, which is a state permit process. If we are able to obtain our special use permit in Nelson County through the DEQ of Virginia, we'll get our permit by rule process. And then next, we've got our system impact study is another portion of that interconnection process with the utility. And then in the mid stage, we're going to go out and do our field study. So we're really taking a good look at the property and understanding what the impacts are to threatened and endangered species, if any, and mitigating those as best we can. The third major component for a solar project, we need site control, we need interconnection, and we need a power purchase agreement. So we need an off-taker to purchase the energy that we're producing. So that's what we're working on in our late stage design and engineering. Of course, throughout this process, we have iterative designs that we're working on, and as we learn more about the project, we can refine those designs, but late stage is really when we're nailing them in and are going to have a construction set. And then procurement of all of the materials that we need is a late stage item as well. So all the panels, the racking, inverters, all of the materials that go into a solar project will be procured during. On the right, the project is located in the southern, near the Gladstone area. So we're proposing a megawatt solar project, which is equivalent to powering about 14,000 Virginia homes. Like I was mentioning on that last slide, the interconnection process, we're working with AEP, and we're going to be tying into the Gladstone substation that is right off of Highway 60 down in Nelson County. So just quickly, I want to touch on an RTO, it's a regional transmission organization. Essentially, to keep it brief, PJM is a regional transmission organization, and they regulate our processes with AEP. So they're kind of a liaison between energy producers and the local utility, which is AEP. So we work with PJM to work with AEP. And then lastly, the site control and permitting, just as it pertains to Wild Rose Solar Project, we do have 100% of our site secured. It's currently a large timber tract that we're evaluating, which we'll get into on the next slide. So it allows for us to really take a look at the property and allow for significant setbacks from the property lines, which is something that we see as really important when we're developing a solar project. And then as of now, we haven't identified any significant environmental issues, and I will let Lauren jump into those. But this is the boundary that we're looking at. Like I mentioned, it is on Highway 60. This, for context, is about 2,500 acres. Please don't let that scare you.
The project that we are proposing will be about 500 acres under panels, and that's our design right now. We are looking at a construction start date in 2026. So, from now until 2026, our design will probably change several times. But I do want to emphasize that we're looking at this size property right now so that we can make sure that we're avoiding any environmental issues along the way and not impacting any wetlands or culturals and habitat that might be on the site. So touching briefly on the local economic impact, this is really important for projects of these. We obviously have construction. There will be construction jobs, but construction is only about a year for projects of this size. So really, the economic impact is the taxes that will be paid to the county. As I mentioned previously, there's no stress on local infrastructure. We have very minimal water use, and it can just be a silent revenue generator and diversify the grid for Nelson County. Like I mentioned, about 250 construction jobs for about a year for the timeline that we anticipate. So, there are skilled workers for solar, specifically installation, but then there are also, we look at landscapers, we need people for tree removal, tree installation for a vegetative buffer. So there are opportunities for local companies to get involved. And then throughout the life of the project, we're looking at about 2 to 5 permanent jobs for people who are maintaining the site, maintaining the vegetation, and then just troubleshooting any issues that might be on the solar project itself. Just quickly, a little milestone schedule of our proposed timeline. As I mentioned, we have our site control secured. We're in the process of our field study, so I'll let Lauren get into that a little bit further. We're hoping to submit our special use permit in December. And then, as I mentioned before, and Lauren will jump into here shortly, we'll be going through our state permitting process later next year. And then we're hoping to start construction in April 2026 and be commercially operable in 2027. So I will hand it off to Lauren to really dive into all the studies and reports that we do for projects of this scale.
Hi, everyone. As Janine mentioned, my name is Lauren Devine. I'm the permitting and environmental manager for the Wild Rose Solar Project. So Janine mentioned that obviously we need to pursue both a special use permit and a permit by rule from the DEQ. So first, starting off with a lot of these studies that are driven by those permit processes, we need to do a phase 1 environmental assessment, which looks at any sources of pollution or contamination that might be on site, so we make sure to avoid those or mitigate them. We need to do a threatened and endangered species review to look at any potentially state or federally listed species that could be on site so we can avoid, minimize, or mitigate any impact. We take a look at any traffic impacts the project could have on the area. We put together a decommissioning plan, which basically lays out how the project would be removed at the end of the project life, and also calculates the cost of that because there is bonding required as part of the special use permit. So there would be funds available to decommission the project if anything were to go wrong and it needed to be removed. A glint glare analysis, just make sure that there's no glint, or I guess I should say glare impact for either surrounding residences or cars driving on roads in proximity to the project. We need to submit a landscape screening plan to make sure that we're mitigating any visual impacts to the surrounding area. So on this property in particular, it would be a combination of existing vegetation, and where that doesn't exist, we would have to supplement it appropriately. And then the next are the big field studies that we need to do. So we need to go and look at any potential habitat that could be on site for those listed species, a wetland delineation, which we do in coordination with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to understand what wetlands and streams are on site, and we either have to avoid them or permit them appropriately. And then cultural resource studies are coordinated through the State Historic Preservation Office. So they approve a work plan, and then we have to go out and make sure that we are identifying any cultural resources that could be on site and again, avoid or mitigate impact. And then a geotechnical review and a hydrology study, just look at obviously the geotechnical conditions, and any hydrology on site so that we can make sure that we're designing it appropriately. So a majority of those are actually required to be submitted with the special use permit to the county, and then, which is listed under the permits that are required. And then we also need to submit a 15 to 2232 review, which is to ask for a determination that we are substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan. So that's everything that we need to do at the county level. And then if we were to get those approvals, we would move on to the permit by rule process, which is through the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. And that's for projects that are under 150 megawatts. So that's really focused on the impacts to wildlife, historical resources, and cultural. So a lot of the studies that we are actually kicking off in the next month or so would be reviewed by the state and all of the appropriate agencies, and they would make a determination that our impacts have either been avoided, minimized, or mitigated. And there's quite a bit of public input in that process. There's a notice in the local newspaper, a 30-day comment period, and also a public meeting that are required. So we would take any public feedback and have to incorporate that into our application. So those are the permits that we would need in order to take this project to construction, but obviously it starts here at the county with that special use permit.
If there's an opportunity for questions, I'm happy to do so, but thank you for your time this afternoon. Again, we appreciate the comments that we've received so far and look forward to working with the county on this project.
Yeah, I have a few questions. I thank Edith and the other one for coming in and saying that we need to look at this carefully, and I agree. And these people we've gone through a process already, and I missed that meeting because I went to the wrong place, but I have talked about that, looked into that. Couple things. In terms of employment, the building of the structures is, will there be an effort to hire local people? You talked about hotels and people coming from the outside. It seems to be a way of America to bring people in from the outside.
Yeah, so the jobs are, I kind of touched on it. There are specific skilled jobs for installing the panels themselves. There is certainly an opportunity to maybe work with a local community college to work on a training program so that we can help incentivize people to get trained in this industry.
Yeah, but that's talk. Will there be any assurances that is going to happen? You know, tell us that you're going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly work on that. I mean, as of right now, there are no plans, but that's something that we work through on every project. So I think I can say confidently that yes, we can commit to creating some type of training program to help incentivize and create local jobs for the construction so that they can go on and work.
One of the things earlier meeting I had was, I thought they talked about purchasing the land.
No. This is a lease auction, so when we're going out and looking at properties, landowners have the option to sell or lease.
The primary landowners in the area you're talking about are timber companies.
Correct.
So that is where you would envision putting the project. And we also talked about to make sure it had no impact.
Yeah.
I mean, people here are aware of the area, let's say north of Gladstone, which is primarily tree farms.
Yep.
But there are homes in that area. Will you, are you going to be specific to us on where you're going to put this thing?
Yeah, yes. So it is a timber property, and the landowner will continue to timber where we don't have panels. They have a significant amount of acreage in the area that they will timber and continue to timber. Where our panels are located is just where it will be cleared. And then once we're done with the project, they'll be able to continue to timber it. But in terms of the locality, like the local landowners, we are very cognizant of that and are at minimum looking at 100-foot setbacks from property lines, 200 for residential. So we're
That's not very much, considering the area that you're proposing. I mean, it could be much greater than that. Because, you know, there's vast tracts of land that are.
Yeah, I would say, we have to, that's actually part of the ordinance, is the 100-foot setback and the 200-foot setback, so at a minimum, that's what's required. But we are proposing to leave more existing vegetation than that, and
Before you get approval, you're gonna bring that
yes,
proposal and have a very specific where you're gonna.
yeah, so
You need to
we,
do that is what I'm telling you.
yeah, we have to, provide a site plan as part of the SUP application, which will show, I know the design up there was just the 2,500 acres. We have to actually propose a site plan of where the panels are gonna be proposed, and then also provide like a landscape screening plan and photo renderings to show what it's gonna look like.
Just to add to that, so during our special use permit application, we'll provide our site plan, but once, if it gets approved and we get closer to construction, there will also be a final site plan approval. So, you know, we will submit what we have today, and once we're getting ready for construction and we have a permit, we will come back for approval of the final site plan.
You know, it doesn't, the advantage of getting energy directly from the sun is a great idea. We can do this, I think, without impacting anybody, really.
Agreed. Yeah.
And the other thing is, although you brought a description of your company, will you make available to Nelson County a financial statement of the company that we can be assured that halfway through this thing won't be abandoned?
Yeah, so we will be posting a bond, a decommissioning bond for that exact purpose. We're required to do that. So when Lauren was talking about our decommissioning plan, we'll submit that for our special use application. It'll show how we're going to decommission the project. And once we will have to post that bond, what that cost will be, so that in any case it gets abandoned, there will be funds available for that.
You talked about within a 40-year period, how many $1 million would be? 5-year period?
5 million,
5 million. How much is that per year?
125,000.
Yeah, and we didn't bring,
Did you just do that?
That's been my thing the whole time.
and we didn't mention this just to kind of scale back our presentation, but by Virginia statute, there's a siting agreement. So as part of our, well, separate to the special use application, we will be able to work with the county to establish what that amount will be throughout the project. So that is, those numbers are just an estimate of what you typically can see in Virginia, but there is opportunity for that to change with the county.
The figure that I got was something $170,000 a year.
Yeah, and that is based off the megawatt size, which has decreased.
So, who assesses what this project is worth?
Like
I mean,
the,
for the purposes of taxation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would say probably the state commission. I mean, they're the ones who kind of set a lot of those things.
yeah, right, the siting agreement is an opportunity for us to work with the county to establish what those amounts will be.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Are there any current or completed projects that you've done within Virginia?
Our company has, one project that's operational in Virginia,
And where is it?
Wake County.
Way-
That's
So way down there.
And what's the size of that project?
I would have to get back to you on that one. It's utility scale, so, probably in the same ballpark as this, but I don't know the exact megawatts off the top of my head.
You mentioned the 3 different stages. That's when those stages are initiated, it's not when they're completed.
Right, and that's just kind of a general help, give an understanding of where we are in the process and how they operate, but there's no, it's just a general outline. There's no like, we're in early stage, we're in mid stage. It just kind of helps us understand exactly, where in the process we are. So I would say we're somewhere between the early and mid stage for this project.
Okay. And the amount of benefits to the county, is that basically the difference in taking it out of land use and paying full property tax on it?
No, that is in addition to.
Okay, so there would also be the benefit of taking it out of land use,
Correct.
same as it is now.
Yes.
And having it.
Correct.
Would that, I don't know if this is a question for you, does that apply to the entire property or just the property that is?
Taking it out of land use?
Yeah.
That is
Just
a
the
good
acre,
question.
just the acres.
I don't know the answer to that right now, but I can look into it.
Something that's really interesting. Is that your last question? I think one of the interesting pieces here is, the 14,000 home equivalent. It's like how many megawatts were the houses, how many megawatts of solar do we need in terms of like taking care of our own county? And I did send a message off to the co-op. I wanted to see kind of how much they see on the grander scale as we look at also industry as well as future capacity, what their kind of vision is of electric companies. So, and I want to thank you guys for coming. You're the first ones to kind of present something solar. We've speculated probably for 3-4 years at least before we were thinking about adding ordinances. So it's finally the day has come. Is there any other questions, Candy?
I do have one question. So would this project benefit our local AEP users directly?
So when electricity goes onto the grid, it's kind of like a drop of water going into a bowl. So you can't really differentiate like a green electron versus an electron that's developed some other way, but it is putting electricity on in this area. So you can't really differentiate like this exact electron developed by this project is going to go to houses in the county, but it is increasing the electricity that's going on in this area. So that would essentially be the same electricity that's getting pulled off by this demand.
But you could compute the amount of usage by AEP customers in
Yes.
the county and the amount of electricity which is generated, and therefore you could extrapolate if there's any benefits coming to the AEP customers from this directly.
Right, and it would just increase the amount of electricity in this area of demand.
So I don't know how all this works, but so you mentioned the Gladstone substation. So when solar is coming off of those panels going to that Gladstone grid, is it just impacting people served by the Gladstone substation, or people? I have no idea how that works. Or does it go from that substation into a big pool of water and goes everywhere? Okay, gotcha.
I think one thing that I've heard before from some other supervisors is proximity to some of that. In the event that, let's just say there's a natural gas issue, your proximity to some of those solar situations could potentially, you would have less downtime, so to speak, because of the proximity to it.
Right, so that's what I was saying in terms of like, you would have more energy getting put on the grid in the area of demand.
Right.
So it is essentially that same energy that's going to get pulled to the houses in proximity to the Gladstone substation, but you can't exactly define that because once an electron is on the grid, it's an electron.
Interesting. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Nope, I was just going to say thank you.
Any other questions before we let them go?
Yeah. So when we get a special use, speaking of Verizon, when we get a special use permit for something like a Verizon tower, for example, they'll do these balloon tests and view shed studies and show us. Is that part of what you do? Will we be able to say, okay, when I'm driving down Route 60, because your worst enemy right now for me is that solar farm in Coatesville on South 29. That's not even straight. I mean, it's an eyesore and it's a crooked eyesore. I mean, it's more, so I would like to know, what are our residents, what are our tourists, what are people passing through gonna see? And, I want to know that before.
No, that's a good question. And as part of the application, that's what those photo renderings will be. So we actually had a consultant go out and take pictures from couple of viewpoints, like near where there's some residential clusters and then along 60. And we actually rendered what it would look like once the project is there. We're either going to keep the existing vegetation to mitigate the visual impact, or we have to plant a vegetative buffer.
And then back to my Verizon comment, when something like this is approved, Dylan, is there a timeline, is there an end date where if you don't act, then
Yeah.
permission's pulled?
So there is, the way that the ordinance is written allows for 2 years for you to pull your building permit. Unfortunately, that doesn't really align with the life cycle of solar development, so we are requesting for 5 years, because once we get this SUP, like I said, we need to go through the state permit, which takes about a year. Then you have to go through your SWIP, which is your stormwater prevention or pollution prevention plan through the state. That also takes about 9 months. So you add all these things up, we need about 5 years to pull our building permits. Probably less than that, but we need a little bit of contingency. But after that, I think we would have to come back and ask for an extension.
One other question. Does this operate like a certificate of deposit at the bank, where is that when you get to term, is there an option of rolling it over, or is that final to the end of the project and everything's removed?
I guess it depends on what party, like with the landowner.
Both landowners and AP.
Yeah, so with AEP, we would, if the project after 40 years is still operational and there's an opportunity to extend it, we would just have to roll through the same processes that we already did the first time around. It may be a little quicker because it's already an existing generator, but yeah, we would have to go through the same processes.
Okay, and what are the terms of the lease with landowner?
It is a long-term lease, so it's a 40-year lease.
Okay, is there an option for renewal?
40 years is the max. There is, 25 years with a few extensions for a max of 40 years.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, thank you all.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
And of course, we would advocate to continue to engage with our community, especially the Gladstone. Do we want to take a quick break before we get into new and unfinished business? You want to, Mr. Harvey? Okay. We'll take a quick 5-minute break.